First of all, I want you to know that I am a part of you. Well, at least a part of me is European, because my heart is an English heart. So I'm a European at heart. Too bad I didn't learn all the languages with that heart. They didn't come with that automatically. This business is a miraculous business. And it is truly a business of the heart. And that's what I want to visit with you a little bit about today. I want to put it in the frame of 3 words. They're called principles, priorities, and profits. Now, I want to talk to you about those because sometimes it gets lost in translation as to what the Amway business is really all about. What the priorities must be, what the principles are, and what our concern must be over the profit and the profits of all of our distributors. Sometimes we get focused on our profits and we forget about their profits. But the goal must be to make them profitable, and when they make money, then you and I make money, but not the other way around. That's a principle of the Amway business. Now, to illustrate all of that, I have to take you back a little bit on what I think are some of the key points. And if you're writing it down, I'll try to go with you, but I'll try to make it clear, okay? So, profits, principles, and priorities will kind of get mixed around in my comments about the plan. Now, first of all, I want to thank you Europeans for my heart. A year and a half ago, thereabouts, I received a new heart in London, England. My heart was in a 40-year-old woman, 39 then. So she was given a new heart and lung, which came from the Czech Republic. And so she was a beneficiary of somebody, and a young man, actually, who was killed in the Czech Republic. And that heart was brought to England, that heart and lung. And when they gave her, because her real problem were her lungs, not her heart, fortunately. But it was an easier operation to give her a heart and lung together as a pair, that works better. So when they gave her a heart and lung, then I was the wonderful recipient of her heart. In a transplant operation, we first of all have to have a blood type match. Then we need a tissue match. Then we need a size match. Then we need a pressure match of what the pressures are in that heart, because my heart had some special demands upon it as it was dying. My heart was only a few months from being totally gone. My doctors told me it was the worst heart they ever took out of anybody in England. So my heart was not very well, and I was not destined to live very long. But the Lord gave me a new heart. You got to understand the miracle. And not only did it, all these other things have to match, but it had to be a heart that nobody in the United Kingdom could use at that time. That was the final test of it. And if nobody else there could use it, then I could have it as a foreigner. And so I was given this heart and given new life. I don't know sometimes why God does that. And that's why I say it's a miracle. And God chose to bless me with a new heart and an extended life. And I give him the praise and glory for it, because it was a miracle indeed. But that's only the first miracle in my life. My life's been a series of miracles, not the least of which is getting to be with you and to know you. But we've been at this 50 years, Jay and I. 10 years, we just sold Nutrilite. And then 40 years ago, we began Amway, another miracle. 2 miracles. One, we got in the nutrition business when everybody ridiculed it and said, who needs vitamins anyway? And we began to sell vitamins when everybody laughed. We used to train ourselves in how to overcome the objection of the doctors who ridiculed vitamins and said, you don't need them. Today we all know we all need them. And it's an accepted scientific fact. But the miracle was that Jay and I got into it at that early stage and became a pioneer in it. The next miracle was when we began the Amway plan, because that was a miraculous series of events that only God could have brought into being. And that's why it's so precious to me, and that's why I'm so concerned about how it's treated and how it's operated. Well, let me just take down a few simple steps for you. David was talking to you a little bit about products, the quality of the product. But as an old-timer, I want to take you back to when it began, because there are all sorts of imitators who come out today with products. But we weren't content with just a product. We were content with making that product so that we could control it from beginning to end. Most of our competitors do not make their own things. They just find some supplier and they go buy it. And they have no real commitment to it. Most of them have no research behind it. They have no continuity to it. But you must understand that when we started, we didn't go out and buy it. We began to manufacture in the very early days because we wanted to have a continual supply to this organization, and we didn't have somebody else making our product in another place, selling it everywhere else. If we were going to have an exclusive product, then we had to be making it. And so while we filled our bottles by hand and stuck our labels on by hand, the product we brought to our early people was a product designed and created exclusively for this business. And that continues to this day. And sometimes in our haste to recruit and talk about the money in the business, you must understand from early days the concern was that I don't care how many people you recruit, if you don't have a quality product behind it, you will fail. And you can count on it. You must have a product that you can stand behind and be proud of. And that's why we have hundreds of research people who work on our products every day. And then we moved out from a product standpoint when ever a better idea came along or a product line being offered, we just began to offer it. And so our line got broad as it is today to serve every conceivable market that you might like to work in. So products are foundational to this business. It's a principle that we deliver to you quality products. Unusual products, products with distinctive features, so that you and you alone can offer them. That was what we set out to do in the beginning. Now, sometimes we forget about products. But I can only assure you that unless you are moving merchandise on a consistent basis, which all of you are, you can't survive just on recruiting. The product is the foundation on which you stand. Don't underestimate it, and don't ignore it. You can get away with it sometime for a while, but not in the long run. When Jay and I began, we had a little different plan when we started with Nutrilite. We were required to get 25 customers to earn the privilege of sponsorship. I know that's not a rule in Amway because we wanted to help you recruit more quickly. But in that process of helping you recruit more quickly, we slid over the product side and we slid over the customer side to where many of you are not as familiar with the products as you ought to be. And your new distributors are not as familiar with the product as they need to be. And if they establish a customer base, they will develop confidence. Something happens to people in this process. Anybody can get customers. Anybody can sell an Amway product. And it comes back to the principle of having a business that anybody can do. Not everybody can recruit. Not everybody is qualified in the beginning to sponsor. They may come to that. But the principle of Amway was that anybody can get in this business and anybody can do it, and we're going to offer products that everybody uses every day so you have a repeat business. We argued about those things for years in the beginning. The importance of products that were consumed. And so the foundation of Amway is built on products that are used every day, and that next month you need some more. So that you have a repeat business. So it's an ongoing business. A lot of your competitors never thought about it. They don't even care about it. But that was the foundation on this business. To have a repeat sale item that anybody can use. And that everybody uses. And anybody, because it's easy, can sell it. And say, if you don't like it, give it back. Pretty good guarantee. But you need to focus the attention of your organizations on getting customers. Because even a new beginning distributor who's fearful and afraid can do that. And once he develops a little confidence doing that, then he can begin to sponsor. But if you short-circuit that, then you've got a lot of people who will try and recruit and can't, and then they'll quit. Because you didn't stage them along the way to help them grow into a leadership role. And sponsoring is a leadership role. But you make them a leader before you've even made them a solid distributor and a user of the products. A principle, a priority, and profits. When you say, oh, just get in the business and you can buy it wholesale. Sounds so easy. And so you just give away the basic profit, that's all. Is that not important? Do you just sell everything at wholesale? To where there's no margin left for that person? That's where the profits are in those early stages. And our goal is to what? To help our people make profits. And that's the immediate first level where they can make money. And they can make it quick and easy. And after they do that a little while, they say, you know, this stuff is really good. And then pretty soon they get proud of their product instead of saying, oh, buy it wholesale. As if they're afraid to retail it. So products are the foundation and the principle in which this business was founded. This company spends millions and millions of dollars to research and get you the very finest products in the world. So you can be proud of it. And anybody can build on it. That's what your business is made of. Now the second thing is a part of the first. Or the second thing. Because it revolves around our whole system of bringing distributors in to this business. And you see, we get down to what we call renewal. Now, when Jay and I started in the business, you became a distributor, and then you dropped out. Or the company would kick you out because you weren't doing enough. And when we formed Amway, we said we're going to develop a system where every distributor pays an annual fee which makes it economically viable to have an unlimited number. Then the sky's the limit. Because they determine for themselves if they wish to stay, and they pay the fee which covers their cost of being in the system, and that opened the doors of heaven almost, so that we could expand forever to the millions, because having them on the rolls didn't eat up the overhead of keeping them on the computer and sending them an ammogram. I know you've never thought about that. You had real reason to think about that. Those are just things that were laid before you, but they're a principle of the business which permits unlimited growth. Without that, you couldn't do what you're doing. Without the computer, we couldn't do what we're doing. But by doing a renewal system and making every distributor accountable for themselves, it isn't up to you to decide where they want to stay or where they want to get out or where they get in. That's their business. That's their choice, and they're going to have to live with the consequences. Very important principle in the beginning, because it puts responsibility on the individual, not on somebody so-called up the line or some boss. Everybody has an individual responsibility. And when you begin to teach that from the earliest days that you're involved in this business, it's your business. I hear us talk about how well the company did. The company does nothing. It's only what you did, and all we do is add it up. We are nothing more than the counter of everything else you have accomplished. And so we have to keep pushing that responsibility to the individual and talk to them about making money and getting customers, priorities in their lives. Then you keep them. Our numbers in the United States, I think roughly, would show that one out of every 13 people who have ever signed up in this business is still in the business. Now, we talk a lot about turnover and dropouts and how to keep them in the business. I think that's a fabulous record. You know why that's a fabulous record? Because anybody can get in. Now, if in the early days, we were always pressured by people to say, we need an evaluation form. Now, what we ought to do is study all the diamonds and learn their characteristics and what it is about them that makes them successful, kind of people they are, and then we're going to write a profile on that. We're going to make a program out of that. And then before anybody can get in, we have them fill out this form and see if they fit the profile of who can succeed and who won't succeed. Because then we won't have to waste our time with these other people who just get in and don't do much or do anything. I just want to sponsor diamonds, that's all. I agree, that's a wonderful idea. But there's a principle at stake in this business. The principle is that our door is open to everyone. We don't care what religion, what nationality, we don't care what age. Everybody can come in. So when you find people talking to you about the fact that we've got a lot of dropouts, say, no, we don't have dropouts. They're just friends who passed through and decided not to take advantage of it right now. Someday they're going to come back and wonder why they missed this. Many of them are coming back, and many of them do wonder. And they watch what you're doing, and they say, I should have stayed with that. I had a man I met in church one day, and I was getting out, and he says, are you Rich DeVos? And I said, yeah. He said, you're the Amway guy, aren't you? I said, yeah. He said, I was in that once. I said, well, I stuck with it, that's all. That's the only difference between us. This is such an important principle, and I know it's old stuff maybe to you, but I think it's all new. You are all newcomers compared to me. You haven't traveled this road. You don't know why we did these things, and I want you to know them. They're very important to you because it'll affirm in your mind what we're all about. And what we're about is helping anybody, anywhere, anytime to have a new chance and a new beginning. And that ties in, you see, with keeping the entry fees reasonable. You don't see how much you can get out of a guy when he comes in. You bring him in with the minimum, not the maximum. You give him a little smattering of products and a low fee so he can join in. Because the higher you raise the price, the more people can't get in because they don't figure they can afford it. Sometimes people say, well, we'll add this and we'll add this and we'll load them up a little bit and we can make a little more money. The point was in the beginning, you don't make anything at the point of recruitment. You make your money after they merchandise product, not before. And when you switch them around, you will die in this business because your priorities are backwards. And then you are using your people instead of helping your people succeed. That's how we got here, folks. Now, since you're all relatively new in the business, and I know some of you are high performers and great achievers, and a few of you around have been around a long time here, but most of you are relatively new compared to the beginnings, which I'm trying to share with you. But another principle, of course, once we move beyond the matter of renewal and the open door policy and getting people in and quality products, we've got to talk a little bit about this plan. Because while you know how to explain the plan and you know what the plan does and doesn't do, you don't always know how it got there. You see it and you take it and run with it, and that's great. But I want to make a few points about it. Because every once in a while I see people getting out of line. Now, we're a big organization, but you've got to understand a principle. You must understand the sacredness of the line of sponsorship. It's a very important element in this business. When we acquired the Neutralite company, Amway was pretty well established. But we had been in the Neutralite business. And when we started Amway, the only people in Amway were in our line of sponsorship. At a later point, we acquired Neutralite and brought them in. And the question was, where do they fit in the line of sponsorship? And I can tell you the one thing that happened, and along with many others, because we had a committee work on how to blend them, how to restore, wherever we could, the original line of sponsorship. And one of the things we did was we placed our sponsor, who we now, Amway's up and running, and we're going, and he's out here still peddling Neutralite. We can bring him in under us so we get another leg. No. He came in and we placed him above us because he got us into this plan in the first place. And that's where they are to this day. They have been dead now, both of them, for about 25 years. But we placed them above us because we respected and honored the line of sponsorship. He didn't make us successful. Your sponsor can never make you successful. They can assist you, they can guide you, they can train you. But if any sponsor thinks they know how to make people successful, then every person they have personally brought in will be successful. And I don't know anybody that does that. Success is done by you. Take credit for it. Be proud of it. You can be proud of your uplines for all they've done for you, just like you're grateful to your parents. But your parents can't make you successful either. Only you can make you successful. And you are here today because you took the ball and ran with it. You are a source and a beneficiary of your own decisions to take charge of your life. Now, that all gets through with this whole plan thing of protecting the line. Now, our sponsor, I checked the other day, and they, as I say, it's an X on the big chart of them in the line. But from the business Jay and I started, they are in that line. They willed their estate to, I don't know who, to some agency that takes care of it for them, administers it for them. It goes to uncles and nieces and cousins and aunts and whoever they divided it up with. And they still receive about $200,000 or $300,000 a year. All because we honored our line and placed them back above us, that they could live in comfort and pass on to their estate all those benefits. You know, sometimes you think you're just in a business. You are in the most unique business in the world. You know that to an extent. But it isn't until you see the generations go on and people pass on that you realize how magnificent this thing is. How that passes on to children, to grandchildren. Your inheritance will live way beyond you. That's hard to think about when you're starting and when you're young. But as the businesses mature, and you see those things happening, and you see second and third generation children taking charge of their business like Dick and Steve and Dave and Doug are doing here, then you realize that things move on. And if we're going to continue, then that's got to be able to move on. And this business has it all built in. It doesn't expire when you expire, which is virtually true with every job, every opportunity you've ever heard of. I don't know any others except copycats of ours who may have tried to emulate it. But it all began here. And it is one of the most powerful things you have to offer and one of the greatest security things you have, because it does not only apply if you die. It applies if you're sick and unable to work. It still goes on. And that's what appeals to a lot of people about this business, who it depends, if they don't go to work, their income stops. That's true with doctors. That's true with most lawyers. A lot of professional people. But in this business, income keeps coming out of your organization, even if you can't go to work. You know, Jay and I, when we started all this, because it involves the pass-through system, the ability to take some income all the way from the bottom and move it all the way up through a line of sponsorship, with each person taking out of it in proportion to what he puts into it. Unreal. Unreal. Impossible without a computer. I remember the day the girls came running down the hall yelling, and the guy who ran the computer department and screaming because he says, "We finally got the plan on the computer." Up until then, the girls would get down with pads on their knees like basketball players have, with huge sheets of white paper spread on the floor, because the bonuses under the pass-through system have to start at the very bottom to compute them. And they would get, as soon as the month ended, they would get the numbers and they would start computing how to pay the bonuses and who gets the 3% and who gets what. Great day. But I remember when Jay and I began, and we sat on the kitchen floor in our home, and we rolled out a big piece of white paper, and we were on our knees. And we began to draw this plan out and this pass-through system. And we worked it at that time down to the 200th level. And we said, if it'll go that far, then it'll go forever. You just kind of accept that. You have got to understand the power in that. The power to keep people, to keep families together, to involve children in your businesses, because it's going to be their business. And that's what makes this such a powerful family of business. But it's a feature, it's a principle of our business to reward based on what you do with this great pass-through system. Now, I talked to you a little bit, and that's my number 4 on my list is really entry, and I talked about that so that everybody can do it. Importance of customers. These are some principles. There are more, but these are the foundations. From a philosophical standpoint, you see, we talk about freedom, and we talk about rewards and recognition and family, and we talk about hope. And that's my last principle I want to talk about. Because the business was built around offering hope. Before it all began, Jay and I sat in the basement of our home and we talked about it. We talked about the fact that we wanted to be in business for ourselves. That was important to us. It's obviously important to you to have a business of my own which accumulates value that I can transfer, that I can move on to my children. Is so magnificent that it continues to offer hope to your children. And hope is the dreams on which this business was built. We began like you, with a little hope that someday we could have a business of our own. A reasonably good business. I remember when we finally did $25 million one year. And we had a big party. He said, wow, did you ever think it would go this far? And then one day somebody said, I heard one of our employees who was giving a tour walk through the hall. And he said, someday we're going to do $250 million. And I pulled him aside after the tour, and I says, Tom, you shouldn't be making statements like that. I mean, you're kind of blowing this thing up a little bit, He said, we have no idea whether we'll ever get that far, We don't know how long this thing can stay together and keep going, because it's such an loose affiliation of people, all of whom have hopes and dreams of their own. And so we got to find a way to coalesce all that, make it so important to stay together that we can build something great. But behind the building of something great, and the reason we talked about billions and not just hundreds of millions, is because you have extended hope to people everywhere that maybe, if they work a little bit, if they do certain things, they can get somewhere. It's a message you deliver to people on all walks of life, don't you? And say, I've got something for you. Well, folks, that's just what Jay and I did when we started. We told the same story that you tell today. And so out of our giving hope to many of you who now are high up in this business, you are here passing on that hope. And it's the challenge of the business to extend hope to everybody we meet, because the world is filled with people who are afraid. The gal who just drove me up in the cart was saying, I can't understand, because she's an Amway distributor, by the way. She works here at Disney. She's like, I can't understand why some of these people just criticize it. She says, I can understand. Of course they criticize it. what are they going to say? That they're afraid? Or that they failed? They need a legitimate excuse for quitting or for not getting in. It's got nothing to do with our offering. But when we're new in the business and present it, we take that as a criticism of the business. It's not a criticism of us. It's a lack of confidence in them. They're afraid to try like you did. And they got an offering right in front of them and they're not smart enough to take it. So if that's the way it is, they got to find somebody or something to fault with it. In the old days, well, the prices are too high. I don't like this guy as a sponsor. You know, oh, I don't know if your products are really that good. And the list goes on. Everybody really saying to me, I'm really afraid to try this. I don't think I can do it. So we have to find a rationale for dropping out. Now, most people who drop out say, well, it wasn't for me. It wasn't what I wanted to do. But as I review it and I see them as we go through history, we find all sorts of them saying, I should have stayed with that. I just got scared. I didn't think I could do it. Well, I'm delighted to be with you because you've decided you can do it and you are doing it. And all we got to do is make sure we reach all over Europe and all over the rest of the world to the hundreds of millions of people who today live without hope. I was recently in Italy. Nice country. Ever been, anybody here from Italy? Oh! I got a nice boat I just got out of Italy, by the way. I love the things you do in Italy. Then I was in Greece recently, so we had a nice time over there. And then I dropped in on Turkey. We had a nice little visit in Turkey. So we love your countries and all that. But I want to go back to Italy, only because that's where the story began. And I had a guest on my boat. He was one of the top admirals in the United States Navy. He was the number 2 man in the entire military operation of the United States. He was the deputy chief of staff of the military, of all the chiefs of staff. He was the number 2 man. And we were visiting together, and he was telling me a story when he was head of NATO and the 6th U.S. Navy fleet based in Naples, Italy. And he said when the Berlin Wall fell down and the doors began to open to that wonderful part of the world that we're now exploring as well and discovering as well. He said, I decided to take the big Navy ship I had and go into the Black Sea where we hadn't been in 50 years. And suddenly it opened. So he said we went into the Black Sea and we made several stops in Russia and other places. And then we pulled into Bulgaria, pulled into the harbor there. So you got a big Navy ship there, and he said, you have to go ashore to say hello to everybody and extend courtesies and greet people and so forth. But he said we went to that part of the world because it was important to wave the U.S. flag of hope to people. The U.S. flag is important to people when they think of freedom. So he said we thought we ought to wave the flag and go there. But he said, as I was getting off the boat, I looked way forward, and there was an elderly gentleman standing and leaning against the ship. His clothes weren't too good. He was pretty old. But I said to my guide, I said, take me over there. I want to talk to this man. Find out why is he standing here leaning against the side of the ship. And so through his interpreters, he asked the man, and he says, oh, Admiral, my friends are dead. Most of my family is gone. My comrades have gone. But Admiral, I lean on your ship because, Admiral, we've been waiting for 50 years for you to come here and give us hope. And you're finally here. That's why I'm leaning on your ship. And you know, as the Admiral told me the story, I thought about the Amway business and how we wave that flag of Amway, which is really a flag of hope everywhere we go. And while many people will not salute that flag or don't like that flag, it doesn't matter. It is a flag of hope that millions in this world have stood under and today bravely carry like you do, despite the criticism. And that's our calling. When Jay and I sat in the basement, we said this business needs a cause. When we sell Neutralite, our cause is to help people feel better. But our cause in the Amway business is to give people hope. This was not an accident. This was by design that we did this. We said, we're going to offer hope. That's our cause. To people who have given up hope, who are locked into a job they don't like, or frustrated with their boss, or just aren't getting ahead, or don't have the education they should have, or whatever. We're going to give hope to all of them. We're going to open our doors and our arms wide. And so I want to thank you for coming through that door, so we could together carry this cause forward of extending hope to millions of people in this world. And I salute you for what you're doing and tell you how proud I am of you, that I can be associated with you and stand before you today. Thank you, everybody.